Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome if you're joining us for week 11 of our discussions on the You Fix Nigeria Challenge. My guest today is Mr. Muyiwa Odunlade. Muyiwa has a long track record in working in transportation and logistics arena. He's worked for some of the biggest companies in Nigeria, in the banking sector. He's worked in the telecom sector. He works in the oil and gas sector at the moment. He's worked as a transport logistic consultant for several of these large organizations. He's going to be joining us today. Mr. Muyiwa Odunlade, you're welcome to the discussion.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to be here.
All right.
I'll keep it as short.
Fantastic. And thank you for taking the time to be with us. Today, I just wanted to have a quick discussion on this issue of transportation and how transportation affects or impacts on the Nigerian economy per se. All right. So I'll start and I'll tell you where I'm coming from, where you are. Okay. So if you look at, I'm sure you've heard about this Silk Road project that China is doing, trying to connect several countries across Asia, bringing it all the way into Europe along the ancient Silk Road. Now, a lot of these things happen because people know that traditionally economies depend on how connected we are, along the roads, along the seaports and airports and things like that. Recently, I was doing a bit of a checkup and looking at the transportation infrastructure in Nigeria. And I wanted us to discuss whether what we have in terms of transportational infrastructure supports our economic growth. What do I mean transport infrastructure? Our infrastructure in terms of airports, ports, railroad, and things like that. So this is what I hope that we're going to be discussing this afternoon. I'm going to start with throwing a question to you in terms of the rail system itself. Okay, so if you look at the rail system now, most of the rail, if you look at what our rail is today, it's what it was in 1912, 1913, those kind of times, a line running from Karanamada all the way to Lagos, another road running to Maiduguri and then to Port Harcourt. When we built those rail systems, the main points on that rail system in that time were places like Zungeru and Wushishi and places like that. Those places are no longer relevant today. Do you understand? So if you assess the transport network of Nigeria today, do you actually think that that supports our economy viability as it is? What are your thoughts on that?
You see, you virtually took words out of my mouth ahead of me coming on board.
Okay.
And I think particularly the railway, I will shed some very interesting lights around the Nigerian railway and all of that. Okay. For the benefit of those that may be joining us, I like to keep transportation as simple as possible. Okay. And I define it in two ways so that at least people have an understanding of why transportation is important to every economy. So I call it the movement of people, the movement of goods, the movement of materials and services from a point to the other. Some school of thought call it, from that point they call origin to destination. If you go deeper in transportation, you would understand that we're actually moving all those things from where it is of less use to where it is of more use. That's basically what transportation is. Okay. So if that is the intent, you can readily connect with the economic importance of moving things from a position of less use to a position of more use. And I'll just delve into railway that Kunle talked about. The stagnation we experienced in the railway sector, personally, I think it's likely due to the regulation, the regulatory framework of the railway transportation system. Okay. Some of the background I have is, yes, we built some of these rail tracks several years back, but the Railway Act itself dates as far back as 1955. Okay. And one important component of the Railway Act, or if you recall, that was when the Nigerian Railway Corporation now became Nigerian Railway Corporation. So it was the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act of 1955. So what typically happened at that time was that two things. One, it gave them that name. Secondly, it gave them the exclusive right to operate and construct.
Okay.
Now,
only
it's a
NLC.
government.
Okay.
Yeah, NLC was given the exclusive right to operate and construct. So there were no private sector initiatives coming on board. And even when they brought the money in, they were, shown the way out, because very readily the act does not support those developments.
Okay.
I think until the return of democracy, before that talk came back to the table and people started to talk about it. Let me tell you one interesting thing. Of course, like most government-run agencies in Nigeria. So between the 1955 and the period that we find ourselves, I think the NLC have declared bankruptcy twice.
Oof.
They've run aground with some of the coaches, some of those tracks. In fact, you are even talking about tracks. Some of the coaches, the wagons that we have, dates as far back as 1948. So tell me, you are talking of location. The complexity around the railway process is even different. If we begin to look at the issue on a case by case, let's take infrastructure, let's take the terminals, let's take the total railway network in Nigeria of, well, not the standard gauge. The standard gauge is just, I think we have about 500 kilometers of standard gauge.
It's fairly recent, yes. The standard
yeah, and then we are just, so it just tells you that, look, at the time the old railway concept was put to bear, it was just to serve certain locations. And predominantly, these locations that you consider now, like, is it still relevant, were mainly farm settlements.
Correct.
So it was basically to connect them to the markets.
Connect them to the markets, bring products from those places to the market. Yeah, I mean,
you're
right. I mean, you schooled in Abuja. I remember when we were going to school up north. I mean, Zungeru was a major junction, and I remember going on the trains and getting to Zungeru. But in Zungeru, the only thing that they sold in Zungeru was granules and yam. That's it. Gakuli kuli gadoya. That's it.
That's all
in Zungeru at the time. So okay. So if this is the case, though, why have we taken such a long time to rectify it? Why have we not moved from that network into a proper network that can support where we are today?
Interestingly, I will blame it on the political will. Okay. I think it was Patutomi or somebody, one of those renowned guys, at a point said he even had the funds sitting somewhere to do the Lagos-Calabar rail. And they just kept tossing him up and down till those guys went back with their funds. And the interesting thing is, I may be wrong because I may not have the total picture of the transportation ministry roadmap as of today. But I honestly think, again, the rail revolution, good initiative by Rotimi Amechi, and I'm pleased, pardon me, I had to mention it. Good initiative by him. Yeah. But I think he needs to take it a step further. I think the governors are beginning to make political statements around citing seaports, which is not also out of place. Ondo State is on one. Akwa Ibom is trying to get a deep seaport. But we need at this... I brought it up because we need to, at this point, begin to ensure that the rails tracks were laid have some connection through those deep sea ports. Otherwise,
I see your point.
Otherwise, we would come back to 5 years, 10 years down the line and say, the trains did not pass through the deep sea ports. If we're conceptualized, even if it's a conceptual now, we must make provision such that in the next 5 years, when those ports will be in full operation, some of those rail tracks will already have whatever, if it could be just be drawing or some plan to link it up, and then you can connect, move your cargo without necessarily trucking. We'll talk about trucking in a bit, but I think that's all I can say. I mean, for now, talking to rail.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That is that's a fantastic thought about connecting those seaports. You're right about the seaport. We need to talk about that later in the discussion. But I wanted to pick you back on the Lagos-Calabar because for me, that was the biggest announcement that this present administration made at the beginning of this administration. And that announcement was made about 6 years ago. Yeah. So now the Lagos-Calabar one, which was going to be more or less the first east-west branch of our rail system, was going to go Lagos, Calabar, coming through Edo, connecting major places like Edo, part of the
Delta States.
Delta States, and bringing that
Correct.
into the Southwest. For me, that was the biggest investment that we're going to do in rail in a long time. So, but what is holding that up? Is it the political will? Is it funds?
I'm going to, again, you see, when you notified me of a discussion around transportation, in all honesty, I'd come up in my head with what I consider the challenges of transportation, why the growth has been stagnated or has been slow, as the case may be. So yes, one is infrastructure. We're going to have to, when they say it's a green field in oil and gas, they're basically saying you're starting from the beginning. So our rail transportation is a green field. So
basically,
you lay the
track. You scratch everything.
We need to start from bush clearing.
Oh my word.
Bush clearing. And then you now have to deal with. I'll be honest, and you've read probably in most of our dailies the problem Julius Vega is having trying to get the Fourth Mainland Bridge right of way, community unrest, cooperation. Because you see, once you say you're starting something, everybody wants a piece of the pie. It is now not important whether it is a developmental project that will benefit them in the long run, but at the moment they are starting, so you need to get those right of ways sorted out. You need to get compensation structures around impacted infrastructure, existing infrastructures. Then you need to get who will fund the project. Oil is not doing so well, so we would have to borrow the money.
Correct.
And then the person that will borrow the money needs to put it on a chart and say, wait a minute, I'm putting XYZ $billion for how long? What's the viability of the project? Lagos Ibadan just commenced operation at 2,500. And a lot of people are saying it's expensive. While I agree with them that it's truly expensive, but it's a capitally intensive project.
I mean, it's the same everywhere in the world. Anyway.
If you go below that,
you see my problem, and I'm going to take you off because you just mentioned something about funding. I mean, I get really upset when people keep saying it's expensive. We cannot ask for the best things in the world without paying for it. We need to understand that. Okay, but let me come back to, because I was in Malaysia about 2 or 3 years ago, and I took a 1 hour journey from the airport into city center. Yeah, I went past 6 toll gates.
1 hour journey.
Yes, because people pay for the road. You need to. It's $1 here, $1 there, but you need to pay for it. They're all told. We cannot keep asking for the best things and not be ready to pay for it. We need to.
I totally agree with you.
We need to get that right. Anyway, but let's go to something else though, because something else that you mentioned earlier was the issue about NRC and the fact that they owned all the rights. Now that got me thinking about privatization. Because I remember that, like you mentioned Rotimi Amechi earlier. I know that he tried to do some light rail in Port Harcourt. Yeah, he did a light rail system in Port Harcourt. Now, Lagos has been doing some sort of IPP on a red line or blue line, I don't know which, in Lagos since Fashola was governor. And the last time I was in Lagos, I saw that line now is coming into Marina. But that project has gone on for too long. It's been there for over 10 years. So now my question is, why are those, even the private ones, okay, let's agree now that the government ones have not been too successful in the past. We're trying to correct that. But why are private rail systems not working as well? They don't seem to be working.
So I would defy a bit and say they are not totally private. A lot of them seem to be doing a PPP, public-private partnerships.
Correct.
So there's counterpart funding coming from government.
Okay.
And then, and let me be honest, we know the bureaucracies around making these funds available when it comes to government fulfilling their obligation. The paucity of funds will always slow down. A lot of times you think, oh, they will move at your pace. Some of these things go through the budget system year on, and then you just see what is allocated to that sector, and then you have to make do with what is allocated to that sector in the year. So basically, if you have a 5-year project and the cost is $10 billion, and your counterpart is supposed to fund 2.5 billion over a 5-year period, if it's unable to meet up its 500 million every year, you will slow down the project.
I see.
You will slow down the project. So it becomes, because again, it also would depend on the kind of agreements in place, whether the other party can go ahead and do 100%. I mean, in oil and gas, there's a production sharing contract, and there's the JV. The production sharing contract allows the oil companies to take all the risk, put all the funds, do all the exploration, and then we can start to share. So I wish you can bring it to the transportation sector.
Exactly, that's my question. Actually, you just answered my question. See,
I wish you can bring it to the transportation.
I tell people that the successful thing that Nigeria ever executed is the Bonny National LNG. That thing runs like clockwork. It runs like clockwork. But why were we so successful at it? Because we set up that PPP, we allowed the private people to run it, and we had an escrow account for it. The money was already there. They are not going back to government to ask for money. There was an escrow account. So my question is, if we're doing big projects like the Lagos Metro system, why can't we adopt that? Remember, people have been talking about Metro in Lagos since Jakonde's time, 1983, 82.
Of course, they saw what we're facing today. Exactly. I mean, they knew Lagos was going to grow into a mega city, so it was like planned. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Okay. You are right, and I share in your frustration in these other sectors. Okay. Yeah, because I honestly, because it's what all of us look at now, we're like, fixing Nigeria is not rocket science. You have a plan, you know the roadmap to execution, you know the funding requirements, you commit to it. And then the other part of it is the different interest groups. Who wants to do what? How do you go about your contracting? How do you ensure a level playing ground for your contractors, especially those that have the technical expertise? So when you bring them in to do the job, how do you ensure that there's minimal political interference, such that they just focus on their core activities, do the project, and get out? Again, I would not leave this discussion without referencing the Ajaokuta. We've been on it forever. And that is so it just explains what we're seeing in some of those sectors. But in all honesty, this administration has given a lot of focus to the rail transportation system. They've laid a foundation that it will be on patriotic of anybody to come on board and not continue in that space, honestly speaking.
I agree with you.
So I honestly think they've done that already for us.
You need to give credit where credit is due. Abuja, Kaduna, the intra-Abuja, the Lagos-Ibadan, Lagos-Kano is a great, they've done a lot of work there, and credit is due. If they can do this Lagos-Calabar, it will be outstanding. There's already an Alaja to Warri, which is also operational. So I mean, those are good things. Let's switch the discussion now to the port. Okay, so you mentioned something about ports, and how we can also link this strategically to railways. Now, that is very critical. I agree with you completely. But I have two issues with the ports, you see. You were talking about the deep sea. I'm aware that Lagos is trying to do a deep sea. Do you understand? In that Lekki Free Trade Zone, okay?
Correct.
The discussion in Ondo State, in Igbokoda, to go for a deep sea port has been there forever. It's been there from 1992. I'm aware of that. 92, 91.
Correct.
We're talking about a deep sea port in Igbokoda. You just mentioned there's one in Akwa Ibom now. There's a free trade zone in Calabar. So my question, do we need all of these things? Do we need so many deep sea ports? This is my first question. Yeah. And then my second question is, why are we not, rather than putting all of these things in deep sea ports in those places, why are we not opening up an inland port somewhere in Onitsha to open up the eastern market and open up something in Benue, Makurdi to open up the agriculture from the north and open those places to the market? What are your thoughts on this?
I would take that straight away from a political angle. And when I use the word political angle, you just sounded like a true Nigerian who believes in Nigeria and understands why we need to revisit the issue of one Nigeria. You see, if we're truly one Nigeria, we have Lagos to Igbokoda, you can connect in 45 minutes.
Correct.
Forget the fact that you have to go through road. So I see no reason why in fact, the location of the two deep sea ports in Ondo and Lagos is a 45 minutes drive if there's a road connection, which I also think they've muted the idea of a road connection. So there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to run two deep sea ports between the two states. I'm being honest here.
Correct.
But again, like I mentioned in the earlier part of this conversation, I see some of our governors already making political statements around delivering deep sea ports in their states. Maybe some of the sentiments I also share with the rice revolution, where a lot of people are just, we have so many rice mills that I sometimes wonder, where are the paddings going to come from? Who is going to plant the rice to feed these mills? But that's another issue. So in all honesty, we might need to consolidate. We might need to consider again intermodality, where these transportation systems can connect. You see, the inland seaport is basically a transit port.
Correct.
You do not necessarily have to have a deep sea port on that coastal line. All of the deep sea ports you are talking is at the southern coastal line. You know, they are landlocked in the north, so they are not even thinking about the ports. All they talk about is dry ports, which sometimes is also inland ports.
Exactly. Yeah.
So basically, all we need to do is look, where best can we put these deep sea ports? Maybe one or two more, honestly, and then we link them to the market, either by rail. I think the road is stretched. Road is currently taking 80% of our traffic.
Correct.
It is overstretched.
It's overstretched.
So I still think that it's just to move cargo out. Vessels come in, they bath, they discharge their cargo. You don't even do any custom papers, custom clearance.
Yes.
You just do separation of those cargoes and you put them on the rail tracks and they go to the next location where you can do custom clearing. It's closer to the market and final destination.
Absolutely.
But because at the end of the day, if you cite a deep sea port in Lekki, what goes on in Apapa is going to go on there until somebody is saying, wait a minute, vessels should not just bath, they should discharge, and we should distribute. We shouldn't even do any paperwork so vessels can turn around. So basically, if we don't start thinking in that direction, the Apapa gridlock is only a child's play. I know the Lekki corridor cannot even accommodate it because it's purely residential. Apapa used to be residential in those days, and we know what it is today. So the same thing is going to happen to Lekki, that planning, that forecasting. And it's not just so there's a free zone that is going to accommodate the refinery, the petrochemical industry, and I think it also has a fertilizer. And then you are now bringing a deep sea port. So
and an airport,
as we speak, well, even though the governor just flagged off the road construction, to cross over to Ekpe is a nightmare as we speak, because the trucks have damaged the roads as we speak. So we need to think ahead. What exactly do we want to make out of all of deep sea ports? And it's huge financing. All of the state governments are advocating for their deep sea port. And between me and you, Lagos and Ondo can share one and they'll be fine.
For sure.
In that their corridor.
For sure.
I don't have a problem with Akwa Ibom. Again, what's the whole investment in Tinapa and all of the Calabar ports? What's the whole investment about? It's not functional as we speak. There's a lot of dredging issues around the place. So why are we just trying to reinvent the wheel? Let's get these ones working. So that's exactly what I think.
Let me ask you a question though, because I think you just pointed to an issue that always bothered me there. So you mentioned that the ports in the east are not working. If you look at where our main ports are now, so you mentioned Apapa, we have Tinkan, yeah? Then we have Warri, we have Calabar, we have Rivers, and then we have One, FLT, and all of those, yeah? My problem is that our main ports in the south don't seem to be working. So whether it's Cocoa Port, Warri Port, Calabar, all these ports don't seem to be working. And I don't know why. What in your view, I have my own views, but what in your view is the main reason why we're struggling with these ports? Why are they not viable? They don't seem viable.
So
coming to Lagos.
Valid points. Again, some of these opinions are very personal.
Correct.
Maybe some people may know what I don't know, so that I would give them the benefit of that. So, but I would say that the South, the agitation in the South that led to all kinds of unrest, militancy, and all of that. A while back,
that's
drove
also my view,
businesses,
actually. Yeah.
drove businesses away from the zone. It's calmer now. Things are a bit normal, and but I'm not sure, guys, or the business guys are back to that. Whether they should go back or not.
You know why I asked this question, Muyiwa?
Yeah.
And by the way, I agree with you. I also feel that it's more of a security challenge. I mean, in the 90s, we were fabricating jackets in Warri. They were doing jackets.
Correct.
Yeah, we were fabricating jackets in Warri. Warri had yards, proper yards, and all of that seemed to have gone away. I mean, I had a lot of discussion with people when they cited the Samsung yard in Lagos, and people were saying, why put that again in Lagos? Why didn't we move it to the east? Or move it to, to Warri, to Rivers, in those kind of areas. But a few of the, and like you rightly said, some of the investors were not too comfortable, I guess. So but we need to address that. The reason I've raised this question is that it's something that whoever is going to do the master plan needs to start thinking about, as they begin to cite the next one. Okay, so let me draw the question. There was something that you mentioned twice already, which I wanted to take you up on. Yeah. So you mentioned about these governors and everybody agitating to have these seaports in their states. I'm not even going to honor a lot of that discussion about them having seaports because some of it doesn't make a lot of sense. But what I see is that they are doing exactly the same for airports. So I'm switching the discussion to airports. I'll give you a quick example in my view. In Lagos,
I am going to be very specific with that airport you mentioned. I am an Ekiti man, like you rightly know. Yes. And I honestly do not know why I need an airport in Ekiti. I'm sure the Fire Army will be listening to this, and they'll take me on it when Akure Airport is under functional, is not optimally utilized, is not. And I think the two states can just come together and make, honestly speaking.
Akure to Ado-Ekiti is 45 minutes by road, at least when the roads were working. Then there is Ibadan. There's an airport in Ibadan which is not working. There's an airport in
Let me shock you. Let me shock you. One of the states that have undertook, that have spent a lot of money on airport facilities, probably Akwa Ibom. They have a very big structure there. I think there's one in Asaba.
Yes.
I wish they can. Okay, so that used to be close to Warri, but they now had an Asaba international airport, so to speak.
Oh my word.
Now, my point is this. I wish they can share to the world the traffic in those airports so that we begin to put things in context. I think there are about 2 or 3 flights daily into Akwa Ibom International Airport, and none of it is international flights. But the 3 flights are domestic daily. So you put in, you see, and this is not rocket science. You need to understand what exactly do we want. Is it an avenue to make money on the side? I don't know. I'm not going to allege what I don't know. But quite honestly, it needs to be fit for purpose.
Yes.
Governors need to start thinking.
No, because Muyiwa, see, to build an airport, like you rightly know, we're talking billions here now, right? I was in school. Let me again tell you again how crazy I think this is. So there's an airport in Lagos. There's a non-viable airport in Ibadan. There's a non-viable airport in Akure. 45 minutes away from Akure, we're proposing an airport in Ado-Ekiti. There's another airport in Benin, which is non-viable. Then if you go to Ilorin used to be an international airport. Under Babangida, they moved that airport to Minna. Both the one in Ilorin and Minna, both of them are non-viable. So the question is, why do we keep building more and more airports for nothing? For nothing. Is there a way we can consolidate it? Let's start from there. Can we consolidate? The US, for example, has an hub system. Can we go to an hub system where you identify 2 or 3 hubs and then everybody flies out from there?
So it's not in debate. The hub system is what works all over the world. Having airstrips, which are not airports, I do not have a problem with that. So you all orbit maybe Ibadan, for instance, and then you just have small crafts that just go to Akure, if you must put something. And those are airstrip, less costly, easier to maintain. Facilities are not as huge as a proper airport.
Yeah.
I know they are not just constructing airports. Some of them are even dreaming that they want international airports. And that's why I talk about the international airports in Akwa Ibom, in Asaba, in all of them coming up with international airports. But I got international airport again. And this is not a pro-Amechi discussion. But the truth is, we've seen traction in some of the things we've been asking for. If you've ever passed through the Port Harcourt International Airport in the past 5 years and what it is now, you will understand very clearly.
I was there. That building was on fire. It was falling apart for 5 years.
I was actually on one of my trips out of Port Harcourt. The international counter was outside. People were checking in. There is a removable, like a collapsible desk. So they bring it out. People queue outside. They do their check-in outside, and they go under canopies. And then you ask yourself, while this was ongoing, Akwa Ibom was building.
Yes.
While this was ongoing, Asaba was building. Then you ask yourself, what exactly do we want?
There's another international airport at Owerri, Akwa Ibom. Then there's Enugu. And all of these places are 2 hours away from Port Harcourt. Or whatever.
So, valid points. Governors needs to start. I think at the governors forums level, if truly it's a governors forum, not for political reasons, we need to start thinking of consolidating some of these huge investments so that we can channel resources to other viable. The Odua investment used to be the vehicle for the Southwest business people, the states that were interested in doing business. And Odua did very well, and I'm sure they're still doing well. Running all kinds of things. We had the textile, we had this
insurance,
something like that. So it becomes a regional process where the states can become shareholders, if you want to put it in that perspective. And then they can decide whether, we need 1 or 2 airports, we need 1 or 2 seaports, and then it's a bit more regionalized than each of the states, trying to come up with some of these things. And that's my proposal for them, if they will think in that line and see what they can come up with.
I think that's a good idea. Very good idea. I'm going to switch it now to road transport. You talked about trucking when we started the discussion, so I'm going to give you some time to talk us through road transportation. Again, like you said, we don't want to give too much credit to Amechi, obviously, but I mean,
sure.
Yeah, but the Lagos Ibadan is going in. I don't know whether that's under Amechi or under Fashola, but that ministry, they're getting that road done. I understand they're doing the bridge which connects Makurdi. They're doing that. The second Niger bridge is ongoing. As I understand, the roads to Maiduguri is going on. They're doing some work in Port Harcourt axis as well. So there's some progress that we're making. But we'll come back to the first question that we asked at the beginning. How strategic are those things? That's number one. Yeah. Okay. How strategic are they? And 2, my second one, the one that really kills me is this. Road transportation is a 2,000-year-old technology. Why is it that all the road construction that we're doing in Nigeria, we're still outsourcing to people? Do you understand? Why is it that we cannot have local contractors, our own Ministry of Works and Transport developing these things? So there are 2 different questions there. There's a question
I get.
And then there's a question on actually getting our local people involved in it. Please share your input on that.
So I think from the statement I made earlier that 80% of traffic is on the road. It would explain upfront why the road is constantly in a bad shape.
Okay.
And then, of course, this is also followed with years of neglect where people have not spent money on the right things. And the government has come now and has decided, let's do rail revolution, let's do road revolution. I use the word revolution because it's actually some form of revolution. And then you look at the stretch. At a point, the traffic to the east was diverted through Ekiti. Why? Because, at a point, the Akure-Ibadan road was a death trap. So when you get to the Ekiti end, before you enter Akure, you divert. The Ore Road was a no-go area from
complete
insecurity,
collapse.
complete collapse. So at a point, everybody going to the north or going to the east will pass through Ekiti somewhere, somehow, and then bust out and then continue the journey. And then you ask yourself, what even does the Ekiti have in terms of road? You are an Ekiti man, and you probably know that I'm not even sure we have dual carriageways on those expresses.
No.
And then when all of those traffic now have to divert through that road, because it was the only motorable road to get out to the east or to the north at a point. So yes, there's this long abandonment of we did not maintain the roads. There are some places you would drive to, and those roads were constructed when we're still operating the regional system, Western region.
Correct.
And you see the coal tar, you will know that this coal tar was, exactly. And that's reality. So yes, there was years of abandonment. There were, and of course, there's population explosion. You see, we also will not be unfair if we do not link our population growth with some of the problems we have. So we have more people to service. We move more people by road. We move more food by road. We move more equipment by road. And all of this is happening on the same road that we said have been abandoned for so long. So I recall I was going to cross Port Harcourt to Warri one day, and I think I got to Yenagoa at 1 p.m. I probably didn't leave 1 p.m., broad afternoon. I did not leave Yenagoa. That's just that Yenagoa stretch. I didn't leave that spot until about 2 a.m.
What?
So
that's 13 hours.
He explains to you what happened. The road cut into two, and then a truck entered and couldn't come out because we were waiting for one oncoming vehicle will pass, another one will pass. So it was one at a time. And then we all stayed there till 2 a.m. I got to Warri around 3:30 a.m. Again, that's just a personal experience. So yeah, we have the infrastructure issues, which is a very major issue. And then it's like government is always pacing against time, trying to catch up with the issues because they've lost years. So this is years of neglect. So almost all the roads are bad at the same time. We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the funding to fix it at the same time. So they'll focus on the more strategic roads, more important roads.
I see.
Apologies to those that feel slighted by, it's Lagos they are doing, it's Abuja they are concerned. The truth is, look, if you must bring food down south, you need to get the roads fixed.
You need to get that road. If you must take something out of the Lagos port, you need
to fix that road. So, in all honesty, resources will go more to those locations than what is expected. And let me also say this, and with again on capacity issue and the fact that we keep outsourcing is a 2,000-year-old. I agree. So let's take a step back and ask, what has our experience been with some of those roads that we've decided to even give to our locals?
Not good.
So
it's a disaster. I agree.
Not good. So
but that's because we're not holding their legs to fire, isn't it? If you have a specification,
I honestly agree.
Yeah, you have a specification. You tell the guy you do the road to this spec. If you don't meet the spec, I will blacklist you.
You don't get paid.
Yeah, you don't get paid.
I totally agree with you that is the point we need to get the local capacity to be developed. It happens in oil and gas, NCDMB and all of that. Correct. And today, the capacity is improving by the day. So it is a possibility. Our people need to step up to the realities of the time. We cannot continue to do things the way we do them and expect a different outcome. So if we must be, there's a lot of opportunity in this road construction you're talking about. That ministry is probably one of the ministries spending the most at this time, even without funds.
The most people.
They're spending.
Yes. Yeah, they're spending.
So, but the truth is, how many of it is coming to our indigenous companies? Maybe not so many. And when I use the word indigenous, because the indigenous companies that are doing very well are probably being run with some technical partnerships. So they have expatriates helping to make sure things are done properly and all of that. And then they keep getting, I would not subscribe totally that the likes of iTech is foreign. iTech does a lot of Lagos Road. They did airport road coming into Lagos. Once you
and
land,
that was very good, and that was very well done.
Well done, well done. You know, and then you'd still also look at the likes of RCC, who we think have some local, some indigenous ownership.
Ownership, yes.
Yes. So, in all honesty, yes.
Julius Berger is now more or less locally owned. At least Julius Nigeria. Julius Berger International is long gone, more or less. Yes. So
you would also agree that maybe until now that the bitumen thing in Ondo State is going to finally come to light. Some of the things that we use, we still bring them in from outside of this country.
Don't let's go there. Bitumen was discovered in Ondo State in 1893. We have not delivered it. So 1893 till now is over 100 years. So,
and you know the truth, just delivering that project, just getting that bitumen out and making it available can turn around the road issues we have in the Southwest at the minimum.
Correct. I know.
At the minimum.
I know.
So I fully, you see, like I said, when this topic was around fixing who can fix Nigeria and all of that, I'll probably not wrap up now, but I'm just giving you ideas that some of the things we're discussing are just, look, there's a Yoruba proverb, and I think you allude to that look, the day a madman knows that he is mad, his healing has started. So we know our problem. We know the issues. So that means our healing has started. And I'm honest, I'm positive about this.
Oh, that's
see, there is no paper that needs to be delivered that has not been delivered on any area of this country. So the truth is, at this point, we need to walk the talk.
We just need to start walking it out. Okay.
We need to walk the talk.
Okay, so then let's wrap up. I'm conscious of the time. Let's wrap it up around that then. See, so we're all talking. We've written all the master plan. There's a rail net master plan now, yeah? There's a seaport master plan. There's all the master plans are there. So what do we need to do to execute it? Are we struggling because ministry people are executing it, government people are executing it? Do we need to create agencies to do it? What is the problem? Why are we struggling? Is it a financial issue? Do we need to borrow money? What is the best way for us to execute and deliver now?
Let me share one statistics I have, probably to help us understand the economic impact of transportation. Over a 15-year period, the US averaged $491 billion in GDP from transportation. So the US GDP was averaging $491 billion US. And that's over a 15-year period. I think the highest at that time was about 600 billion. I don't have the exact figure. It was about $600 billion. And then, of course, their lowest, so this is average over 15 years. So their lowest was probably about $450 million. Now, that's putting it in perspective. So an industry that gives you, or that averages about $500 billion, what do you think will happen for a serious government? You will focus on it. It's non-oil, it's non-agriculture, it's services.
It's services, yes.
Transport, it's services.
It's all services.
And then you have a service sector that averages $500 billion over a 15-year period. So that's like every year you are talking $500 billion. And taking it back home, it's been doing billions of naira too, in all honesty. So the question is, just like every other thing, one, we need to prioritize transportation. You see, it revolves around every aspect of life.
Correct.
Someone is sick, needs to get to the hospital. If there's no good road, there's no hospital to get to.
There's no hospital.
So in all honesty, so one, it needs to come to the fore as something we need to take very seriously. Let me digress to agriculture briefly. And why I said digress. The amount of farm produce that gets wasted because they can't get to the market.
Between the north and the south, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
So does it not give us enough business reason to say, look, wait a minute, we need to fix transportation? So I needed to start from that angle so that people will begin to appreciate the importance of transportation to the economy. Until we begin to see that, wait a minute, and those
Oh, Muyiwa, I think I lost
wastage items not getting to location. I was talking to, I think I had a privilege of listening to one-time MD of this company that runs logistics for UAC Foods. You know, they set up a logistics company to manage all of their logistics issue. And they used one of their products, Gala. Gala has a 7-day lifespan or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And then when they finish producing it in Lagos, before Gala gets to Kaduna, truck will do 4 days average. So the thing has 3 days lifespan left.
Oh my God.
Come on, guys. I needed to throw up some of these things because it is only when we begin to realize some of these things that we understand the importance of transportation. So that's one side. The other side is that the will to support, which I think I listened to Amechi at the This Day Award, and he said, because he was the Minister of the Year, you know, This Day Award 2020.
That's good. That's
and
good.
in dedicating the award, of course, dedicated to God too. And he said, listen, this is not possible without the support from the president, who said, you must fix this real. You must fix this. You must fix this. So again, please, this is not an, I like to be very clear. This is not an APC PDP issue. Please, let's separate it. Every government that takes over in this nation must recognize that transportation is an important component of our existence.
It's the life wire.
It's a life wire. It will boost our economy. Farmers in Ekiti, in Akure, in everywhere will not bother about getting their things to the market. They will be encouraged to farm because you know that your things will get to market real time as you harvest. You'll be sure that there's a connectivity between those rural settlements where the farming takes place and the urban settlements where the consumption
takes place.
So getting people to farm will be made easy. All of the campaign, there's no job, go to the farm. Go to which farm? You produce these things, half of it gets wasted. A lot of the people that produce only deal at the primary market, which is you produce, you harvest, you take to market to sell. And when I use the word market, is your local community market. You can't even get it. You can't even get it to your state capital. Because when you consider the cost of transportation to your state capital, it would have taken away all of the profits you would imagine you want to make. Yeah. And then when you don't get it sold, don't forget, coupled with this transportation is warehousing issues, storage. So if you move things from rural settlements to Smidu to your state capital, and you can't sell it, you have to move it back. Because there's no warehouse, there's no storage. So it's all linked. And
it's all linked. So basically, what you're saying to us, Muyiwa, basically what you're saying is, okay, first message, we need to be at the strategic level. This is one. Fully. Number two, fully. Yes. Everything needs to be integrated. Rail, seaports, road, airports, everything. Airports. We need to optimize and direct the little money we have to the places where they will make the highest impact. This is number three.
Exactly, where they will make the highest impact.
Exactly. And then storage, don't look at it in terms of transport alone, look at it in terms of a full chain supply logistics. It's a full chain supply logistics. Everything needs to be integrated. We need to look at it together.
You've just summed it up. That's the way to look at it.
Thank you very much.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's a huge market. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. We really appreciate that. Like I keep saying to all of our guests, this challenge is for 30 weeks. This is week 11 we're presenting. We'll be coming back to you before week 30, hopefully, to discuss some other topic. But thank you for taking the time with us tonight.
Thank you, Kule, for the opportunity, and I'm happy to be part of this. Thank you very much.
All right, our pleasure. Thank you.